podcast. My name's Amanda. I'm here with my lovely mother.
Hi, I'm Janette.
And I'm excited because today we are going to be going over the Disney movies in each era. So this is very interesting because a few months ago, me and my best friend Shannon, we just did this for fun, literally. If you can hear the cat on the cat scratcher, she just started attacking
making
the
noise.
cat scratcher. But it's interesting too because when you go through the eras, it's interesting what movies are technically officially part of each era. So for instance, sequels are not part of the eras of, like, if you look at the eras of movies, like Cinderella 2 isn't actually on any list.
Okay.
Like that doesn't count as a movie.
I could see that. Okay.
The live action movies also don't count either. So all the live action remakes, none of those count.
Right.
Any remake of a movie doesn't count towards this list.
Okay, I could see that because they made them, even the sequels and the action movies are all based on those original movies.
So it's kind of interesting. I looked at many different lists of like which movies count towards the Disney era. So I will link the link that I decided to pick, what I picked for the Disney era's movies. Okay. It is a few years old, so I had to add a few extra movies to it. But yeah, but for the most part, they all kind of said the same thing. So I was like, all right, so we'll just go through it. So the first era is the golden era. This is from 1937 to 1942. And as I was doing research on this, I think we're going to do an episode on each era of movies as well, because there's a lot of interesting stuff.
And let's make it clear here that I know nothing about this. That she's just
my mom doesn't know. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to be like first impressions. So we're just going to go through, go over the movies, and then just basically pick our favorite movie out of it. Like if you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, which one of these would it be? Era. Okay. And some of the eras are really hard, honestly.
Oh, really? Because some of them have
some
all
of the eras are real good. Let me tell you, some of the eras are not real good. But all right, so the golden era. So of course, the first Disney movie that came out in 1937 was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay. Also within this era is pretty small if you think about 1937 to 1942.
Well, it took them longer to make the movies.
For sure. So we had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937, Pinocchio in 1940, Fantasia in 1940, Dumbo in 1941, and Bambi in 1942. This is considered the golden era of the movies. Okay. So out of those 5 options, which one do you think is your favorite?
Fantasia.
Oh, really? Fantasia. Why do you think Fantasia?
I loved Fantasia. I thought it was great. The music, the optics, the cartoon, the just the sketches. It was a smattering of everything. I just loved that kind of stuff. Yeah. So Fantasia was the one that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I feel like I would actually pick Bambi. So it's like I really loved Bambi. I rewatched it in recent years actually just to like see what it was all about type of thing. Okay. And it's funny because all these movies are so short. They're only an hour.
Yeah, they're not that long.
Because at the time they were so innovative for like the hand drawn animation that they were doing with the color and everything like that as well. So yeah. But when you rewatch Bambi, I think it speaks to how Disney really did well with animating the music with the actual animation itself. So like it's all in sync. And Fantasia is the same way too, where it's like it's those first movies that were using music to tell the story of whatever the story was. And I just thought Bambi was good. I feel like
I think the thought process and the planning and trying to do that back then was just took more.
It did, yeah.
It took longer. It took more.
And at the time, it was so new. No one was doing that yet, so.
Now they're banking on using a lot of the technology and stuff from the movie before into the new one. So yes, I think it just took longer.
Yeah, and I feel like it just like Bambi especially just evokes so much emotion with you had so little to work with, so to speak.
And back then even the regular movies weren't that long. It's not like now when you have 2.5 to 3 hour movies. There was very few movies that were like that you went to the movies
Bambi's
and
only
spent
like an hour,
that long.
but it's good. I liked it. So all right, next up is the wartime era. The wartime era is from 1942 to 1949, of course, World War II. Okay. So the movies in this one, I honestly don't really know a lot of these movies, if I'm being honest. This was Saludos Amigos, 1942, The Three Caballeros, 1944, Make Mine Music, 1946, Fun and Fancy Free, 1947, Melody Time, 1948, and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, 1949.
Oh yeah, those are a lot of
the wartime
They were
era.
not the kind of movies like Snow White and Cinderella to begin with.
Yeah, they also call this era the package film era, and they say that it was a very different style and tone to all of the other eras, and that's obviously because of World War II. So it affected the studio, affected the whole world. It's okay, Savannah's just playing with her toy. And so because of the draft, of course, too, for World War II, a lot of animators were drafted. So if you think about that,
so they were short people.
You lost a lot of workers in that sense, just like in a general sense. Everyone was, it was wartime era.
Right. I'm not so sure I saw any of those movies or remember any of those movies. I mean, obviously none of us were born yet, so.
It also says too that at the time, again, because of the war, a lot of American films were banned internationally. So like in Europe, for instance, no American films were being sent to Europe. Right. So that would have also affected profits too.
Right.
So very interesting though. Yeah. So for these movies, honestly, I think the only one I've seen is The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So I'd have to pick that one because
what was the second one?
The Three Caballeros.
That's the one. That's the only only one I've seen, and if I had to pick one, that would be it.
That would be it. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like these ones, I actually haven't seen many of them. Obviously,
Yes.
I think they're not super popular.
No.
So I think a lot of the colors, for instance, of Make Mine Music, when you go into Disney's PhilharMagic, a lot of the colors and like the theming in Disney's PhilharMagic looks like it comes from this movie a little bit.
Okay.
It's just like colorful music notes basically, and you know, I guess you can say that's kind of basic to a certain extent.
Right.
But I could see them saying like as a nod to like one of the old classic movies, that's where it comes
That's
from.
where it comes from. Okay.
But yeah, but
That's
I'll say
interesting.
I've never actually seen the movie, so I wouldn't know. All right, so up next we have the Silver Era. The Silver Era is from 1950 to 1967. Both of my parents were born in this era, which is very interesting. During the
okay.
Silver Era, the Silver Era consists of Cinderella 1950, Alice in Wonderland 1951, Peter Pan 1953, Lady and the Tramp 1955. That was a year for you, Mom. Sleeping Beauty 1959, 101 Dalmatians 1961. There is a movie that came out in 1963. What do you think it is? It was The Sword and the Stone. That's the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't it so interesting?
Okay,
And
that
then-
wasn't a big one for me.
And then The Jungle Book 1967.
Wow, okay.
For me, this one was hard because a lot of these movies I love. I love Cinderella. I love Alice in Wonderland. I love Peter Pan. I love Lady and the Tramp. Even 101 Dalmatians. Like this one was just tricky.
Those three right there.
Yeah, it has a lot of good ones
yes.
in this era.
That's a tough one to pick between them, but I would say 101 Dalmatians. If I had to think
Really?
about
That's
growing
interesting.
up, which one was one of my favorites, I think 101 Dalmatians was one of my favorites.
So they consider this to be when Disney decided to start doing like the narrative style. So you kind of follow that one main protagonist on their journey, whatever that journey may be. And usually they were almost always an underdog. So Cinderella, an underdog, Alice, an underdog, Peter Pan, you know, even the Tramp, for instance, and Lady and the Tramp.
Right.
So yeah, so I kind of like that idea too, that it's like they all have that similar theming through them when you look at that.
Which
I
one
think
is
if
yours?
I'd have to pick Cinderella. Cinderella when I was a kid was my favorite movie.
You were always Cinderella.
Yeah, I love
Mine would be
Cinderella.
between Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, and 101, but I think 101 would outshine to me.
Yeah. And it says here that Peter Pan was a standout film in particular because the flying animation of Peter and Wendy and all them flying was notoriously difficult for the animators to do.
Oh, okay.
So especially that smooth flying type of animation. So at the time it was very difficult. So I think that's interesting. And that's hard too because I know as a kid I also loved Peter Pan as well. Like I remember we used to watch Peter Pan.
Oh, God,
a
used to
lot.
watch it nonstop.
Yeah, but I think I would have to pick Cinderella over Peter Pan, especially as an adult, just because I still just love Cinderella to this day. Nothing could ever thwart Cinderella, I think, to me. So, yeah, I feel like this was a hard one. This is, I feel like, where Disney really started to come into themselves because the next era is the Bronze Era. The Bronze Era is the shortest era, is 1970 to 1977, so only a few years.
Okay.
And this is the years following the death of Walt Disney in 1966. So a lot of these movies were kind of that transition between Walt being like the center focus of everything Disney to Disney having to become its own self, so to speak, without Walt leading them.
Right.
So there's only 4 movies in this era. We have The Aristocats in 1970, Robin Hood 1973, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh 1977, and The Rescuers 1977. I feel like you're obviously Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, I wasn't Winnie the Pooh till we got to it. When we got to Winnie the Pooh, that was it. It just had to take it. Winnie the Pooh is mine. I just loved Winnie the Pooh. I think it was more going to see it with you kids, and you know, and when you were finally old enough to look at it, watching Winnie the Pooh. So I'm not so sure that when it came out, it was my favorite movie.
That's okay.
But
Well,
at
we
this
can
point,
say right now,
those 4 movies, if somebody said these are the movies you'd have to pick, Winnie the Pooh is
Yeah,
just...
because I would say the same. When I was a kid, I would have said Peter Pan, I think. But as an adult, I'm like, it's definitely Cinderella.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. As an adult, even now, Winnie the Pooh would be my choice.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
I think I would pick the Aristocats over Winnie the Pooh.
That was my first.
It's hard because I do
love
love
as you said
the
Aristocats, I said, oh, I don't care what comes after
Yeah,
that. The
the
Aristocats is going to be it.
I love the
but
Aristocats.
once we got to Winnie the Pooh, it's a real,
That's what it was.
it's
hard.
a real
It's tricky.
tie there with
Yeah.
Aristocats. I got to tell you,
It is.
I love the story of
Funny, for
Aristocats.
4 movies, it is pretty tough between those
Yes,
2 movies.
but
Sorry to the
those 2
Rescuers and Robin Hood.
movies would be like, the Rescuers
Yeah.
were cute and whatever.
I remember
but
Luke really loved the
Yes,
Rescuers.
but I got to tell you, it's between Winnie the Pooh and the Aristocats. But in my mind, no matter now, even when I see little things on Instagram about Winnie the Pooh and little sayings and little things about it, it's just, I just love Winnie the Pooh.
No, I love Winnie the Pooh too.
Yeah.
And again, this era, it was so short too, because I'll also remind you too, Magic Kingdom opened in 1971.
Right.
So of course now the parks were expanding. So a lot of the Disney as a company's time to focus were on the parks rather than the films,
not on the
which is
movies.
why only 4 movies were made within this era, giving it still 4 movies in 7 years.
Right. And they're 4 good movies.
Yeah, they were. They were 4 pretty good movies. All right. So after, what was that one called again? The Bronze Era. Now we are in the Dark Ages, they call it.
Oh, God.
Which I think is so funny.
What do we have? Villains?
The Dark Ages, 1981 to 1988. I guess this one's also 7 years.
Okay.
So this was, they consider this to be a troubled time in the studio's history because at this point, so again, those last 4 movies were still based on Walt Disney's, his own like original ideas that he had. So the animators and the creators still had a little bit to pull from. Right. But now they've pulled from everything that Walt kind of had, and now they're truly on their own, truly deciding what they were going to do.
Okay.
So the 4 movies in this era is The Fox and the Hound, 1981, The Black Cauldron, 1985, The Great Mouse Detective, 1986, and Oliver and Company, 1988.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see why it's becoming the dark times. They also said too that the storylines themselves were a little bit darker and they had more frightening villains than they had in previous movies.
Yes. As soon as you say Fox and the Hound, the one thing that bothers me about that is when she leaves that poor little fox. She just puts him out there and leaves. I could never. I mean, I think of my little kitty and I just don't even like going to the store and leaving her alone, let alone leaving. I can't stand sadness. I'm one of those people that I just can't deal with the sadness. Yeah. So that one, I really can't say I like any of those movies.
Yeah, I think The Great Mouse Detective is my pick because remember when we were kids, me and Luke did like The Great Mouse Detective.
Yes, we used to watch that one. So that would be my pick too because the other 3, I really don't like the storylines.
Especially too because my brother he loves spy movies. So like spy movies, detective movies, he was really into that when we were
into
kids.
That era.
So The Great Mouse Detective was like a big one for us at least because of that. So I'd have to pick that. But it also makes sense too that again, none of these movies were like super standout.
No, and remember you guys weren't even born when they were made. So obviously we're talking about when we started showing them on the DVDs. These are movies that we never really, I think we have them upstairs somewhere, but they're really movies we never really watched.
For sure.
Yeah.
So again, they went through their dark era, but then out of the dark era came the Renaissance era. This is the most famous era, I guess the most infamous era of all the movies. This was from 1989 to 1999. So the movies in this one are The Little Mermaid, 1989, The Rescuers Down Under, 1990, Beauty and the Beast, 1991, Aladdin, 1992, The Lion King, 1994, Pocahontas, 1995, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1996, that's the year I was born, Hercules, 1997, Mulan, 1998, and Tarzan, 1999.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All the good movies are in the Renaissance era.
This is impossible.
And this is the one people often refer to a lot because, I mean, like it was the 90s, you know? So it's like the 90s are infamous on their own. But again, all of Disney's classic films kind of come from this era. They came
through there. I mean, this is impossible. I got to say, out of everything, as much as I love all of them, Mermaid, Aladdin, and Lion King stick out the most in my mind.
Beauty and the Beast?
Beauty and the Beast. Okay, so all 4 of them stick out in my mind.
Not Tarzan? You love Phil Collins.
Tarzan I liked, but because I love Phil Collins and I like the music of Tarzan. Yeah. The movie of Tarzan, I used to watch the regular Tarzan when I was a kid. So that one not as much as the whole ambiance of the movie. And that whole ambiance of the movie is between Little Mermaid because of my love of the whole Caribbean idea, Lion King. But I gotta say, at the end, Lion King's gonna win out for me.
I feel like for you it's gonna be Lion King.
For me, it's gonna be Lion King, and only because of all the other reasons that I love the other movies, Lion King holds a special part of my heart. So because of that, Lion King would be my choice.
For sure. No, that definitely makes sense. For me, it would be Mulan. You know, it's like when I was a kid, I loved Mulan. Especially when in America in like the 90s and early 2000s, there was no Asian representation. It was only Mulan. Like that was kind of it. And over time now, there's been so many more Asian actors that have come into American Hollywood and stuff like that you can look up to. But when I was a kid, Mulan was kind of it. There wasn't really a lot of other Asian, women to look up to. Right. So
I left that one out, but that was the other one that was impossible. Yeah. That was the last one you mentioned. But also the story of
Mulan is just, so brave, so courageous. Right. It's like what she does for not just her family, but for her country as well. Right. It's just a great story in a general sense. But it says for this era that The Little Mermaid was actually a huge shift for Disney because The Little Mermaid became such a success that is actually what birthed basically the Renaissance era. And it changed the Disney animators to do, again, going back to that narrative style formula. And it says here they were told in Broadway style acts and having those internal emotional songs is like the pivotal point for the main character of the movie, so to speak. And if you look at each one of these movies, all of the main characters do have some kind of pivotal song that they sing that's just about themselves, of like their arc, basically.
Right.
And now a lot of Disney movies do that.
I gotta tell you, like when you think back to this era, I'm thinking about all the different movies. And the Little Mermaid also, it was like you said, after that dark era, when Little Mermaid came out, the colors were also a draw. That was the first time I had been back to Disney World in like, I don't know how many years. So it was the first time I went back to Disney World
in the
at
90s,
the time.
I remember you
and it was right before the movie was about to be released. So all the merchandise was out. Every store was covered in Little Mermaid merchandise. And the colors grabbed you. Just that
because they were like those like light
that
greens,
tropical idea, that whole idea of the atmosphere that grabbed you in that movie.
Yeah,
so
no,
that was
sure.
something that gave that movie, credence. And then you get to Beauty and the Beast, where just the whole story and the opulence and the whole thing about it and the music. Okay, a lot of these. That's another thing about these
like
movies.
the Beauty and the Beast was the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture. So.
Yes, and these movies not only had the animation, they had the music, and I think that was the biggest draw to a lot
all
of these.
These movies have really good music.
Every
within
single
them.
one of these movies had music, dragged you in and kept you interested. And for me, music's a big thing.
Yeah.
Even on a TV show, if the opening credit of a TV show has really good music, then it draws my attention. I'm a music, I like that. To me, all those movies that you mentioned, the ones that caught my attention was the ones with music.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason Tarzan was such a big thing.
They all have music for sure. And I think too, again, they all have that emotional arc for that main character.
Emotional
where it's like
music.
they're all going through something and they all are, they all have to succeed in whatever it is.
Yes.
And they all have their big song, especially in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, So, yeah, but I think, again, it's like, I think this is, and then I feel like Disney created this formula and then they started using that for a lot of other future films as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, I agree. I think the Renaissance era is probably one of their best eras. Overall, definitely the best era. It happens to me in the 90s. Although no movie came out the year my brother was born. Sorry to him. But Ted got Aladdin. That came out in 1992. Okay. So, yeah. But between Aladdin and The Lion King, nothing came out the year Luke was born. So after we had the Renaissance era, 1989 to 1999, of course, some of the best 10 years, I feel like, for Disney. Then we go into the experimental era. This is 1999 to 2008. So during this era, again, everyone's kind of going into the new millennium. Disney just had this super big success, and they decide a new generation of viewers as well. So they decided to, so this is kind of when they started using the CGI technology as well. But with this as well, remember in the early 2000s, of course, 9/11 happened. So a lot of things were unsure of in the world in itself. So Disney started doing some big risks, but they did not all pay off, unfortunately, for Disney. So the movies in this era was Fantasia 2000, that came out in 1999, Dinosaur 2000, The Emperor's New Groove 2000, Atlantis, The Lost Empire 2001, Lilo and Stitch 2002, Treasure Planet 2002, Brother Bear 2003, Home on the Range 2004, Chicken Little 2005, Meet the Robinsons 2007, and Bolt 2008. So
It's an easy one for me.
When you look at these movies, you can kind of tell a lot of these people don't really talk about as much anymore.
No.
I think now The Emperor's New Groove has had a huge resurgence that people really love The Emperor's New Groove. I think as well, obviously Lilo and Stitch is the one I think from this era that's really stood the test of time, where Lilo and Stitch is still extremely popular to this day. But some of these other ones really got lost. No one talks about Brother Bear, Home on the Range, Chicken Little. No one, Meet the Robinsons. No one ever really brings those up. There's no merchandise for those movies.
No.
Bolt, I think people really liked, but Bolt was never like a huge,
Never a big hit.
Not like a huge blockbuster. But I remember when Bolt came out, a lot of people did like Bolt because it's about dogs. So a lot of people like dogs.
Dinosaur was a hit to a certain extent because a lot of young kids like Dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur fan, so of course my big one is Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love Lilo and Stitch. I love everything about the personality, what happens, the Ohana family theme, the whole idea of what happens with Stitch grabs me. So I love Lilo and Stitch. That's my favorite. That was an easy era to pick from.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. And it says here as well that The Emperor's New Groove at the time in 2000 was the least profitable film Disney had in many years. And then Treasure Planet in 2002 was actually lost money. And that was the first time Disney lost money movie since the 1980s. And a lot of critics were saying that Disney was putting like the technical innovation of animation more ahead of like the storytelling itself. And so they need to go back to the storytelling, not
which is
just
people
the animation.
want when they go to the movies.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the animation can be phenomenal, but if the story's not interesting or doesn't mean anything to anyone, no one's going to care. No. So I agree. Out of this one, Lilo and Stitch, I think, is my favorite as well. I always really loved Lilo and Stitch. I remember really liking Brother Bear when I was a child. Isn't that the one Luke didn't like because it was really sad or something like that?
Yes, that one's very, very sad. That was another thing. Luke took after me in the fact that you couldn't go to a movie that had a sad beginning because as soon as the movie got sad, we had to leave. Yeah. So yes, that was not a good movie for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, but Lilo and Stitch obviously I think is so great. And it's funny because a lot of these animators who worked on the animation from these movies, because the era was so poorly, Disney let go of a lot of those animators and they all moved over to Universal. So a lot of the animation for like things for like I can't remember like Shrek, Shark Tales, like Happy Feet, a lot of those animators came from this era of movies.
I could see that. Okay.
So that's what people say too. Like this one had a lot of like the weird sci-fi stuff, like the weird aliens, the weird like you know, quirky things kind of going on them. Yeah. They all kind of went over just to different studios.
Lilo and Stitch has the same thing, the aliens in it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know.
All right, and then the final era, I think in present time, I think this era will be renamed overall, but the final era is called the Revival Era, and that is 2009 to the present day. So that's 15 years almost basically that we're covering.
That is a long time.
So I think within the next 5 years or so, they will probably break up this era into two eras. But as of right now, everyone is synonymous to say that we're still currently in the revival era from that experimental era. So there are a lot of movies, of course, since 2009 that have come out. So the unofficial list that I have put together is The Princess and the Frog 2009, Tangled 2010, Winnie and the Pooh 2011, Wreck-It Ralph 2012, Frozen 2013, Big Hero 6 2014, Moana 2016, Zootopia 2016, Frozen 2 2019, Onward 2020, Soul 2020, Raya and the Last Dragon 2021, Luca 2021, Encanto 2021, Turning Red 2022, Elemental 2023, Wish 2023, and then we do have Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 that came out in 2024. So there are a lot of movies in this era, and that's why I think looking like within the next 5 to 10 years, they will probably break it up where the revival era is from 2009 to 2020, I think, and then once COVID hit, I think that will have been another era. But I think right now it's too soon for people to say it's like we need to break up the eras again. You know, that's one of those things you always look back in retrospect. So I think that's probably what it's going to happen in my personal opinion, because I think once we got to Onward in 2020, Onward did not do well because it came out.
That's a shame because that was a really good movie.
Onward was a great movie, but it didn't get a theatrical release because it literally came out in March of 2020. So its theatrical release was canceled. It went straight to Disney Plus. Did poorly on Disney Plus, of course, because it was COVID. So everything during COVID was, you know, kind of struggling a little bit. So I think that is, to me, that's the mark of the next era is Onward. It's that first one. What that era is called, I don't know. So, you know, we'll come to see. But I think the revival era would be, in this case, Princess and the Frog 2, Frozen 2, essentially. So, and then, you know, then we have our current era, so to speak. But yeah, but it is interesting because this is where Disney has now fully embraced the CGI animation. This is also when they started, you know, really working with Pixar and DreamWorks, of course. So again, everything is kind of has those Broadway musical style storytelling, the big acts, the big songs. Again, a lot of like CGI within it itself. They also started doing like the new twist villain type of thing, they say, especially in Frozen. Of course, Hans ended up being like the twist villain at the end. And that's why I say too, after 2020, I feel like the emotional arcs is more about like, you know, you don't have like the big bad villain, so to speak, after 2020. And Onward, the villain is the fact that their dad died and they're trying to get like they want to see their dad one more time. Yeah. You know, and in Encanto, it's the generational trauma of what the grandma experienced and how she's pushing her own trauma onto her family going forward. Right. So I think Disney in 2020, really Disney did start a new era, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. Right. Whereas like, again, the villains have changed, you know, the villains aren't all the same anymore. Yeah. So, and same thing in Soul too. There's no big bad in Soul, so to speak. It's
that was a good movie too.
That's what I'm saying. I love Soul. Soul hit hard for me. And it's just like, it's like him trying to reach his own goals and realizing that it's like your goals in life can change basically, you know? So.
They all had messages, different messages.
For sure.
Like I said, when you're talking about all the different underlying, it was a different type of message they were coming out with, which is hard for me to pick them because, like I said, Soul was well,
I guess we can, again, I want to split it up between the revival era from 2009 to 2020. So that would be The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Winnie the Pooh, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6, Moana, Zootopia, and then they do include Frozen 2 in this. So you can say Frozen 2. So out of those movies, I think I would probably, it's hard between Tangled and Moana because I really love Tangled and Moana.
See, I like three of them. I like Princess and the Frog because of the setting, because of the music, because of the setting, because of the that's another one where you have to start to understand that life is life and you may have to, you know, put up with what your fate is. So, and Moana. I mean, Moana was a big one.
Moana is huge. I mean, like,
Moana was a big one.
Obviously, Frozen is like the flagship of this era. Like, Frozen, I think, changed Disney in so many ways.
Frozen was good, but it was not my big.
Yeah, like Frozen was never my personal favorite, but I do recognize that what an international phenomenon Frozen became.
I would not watch that over and over again.
Same here. But let me tell you, when I was in Disneyland Paris and I was watching their little nighttime show, not a little nighttime show, but I was watching the nighttime show by myself, and they went through all the songs singing in French and English. When the Frozen song happened, everyone was like, everyone got so thrilled that everyone was singing along to the Frozen section. It was so funny to me because in Magic Kingdom, for instance, that doesn't happen. It's like either you're singing along to the whole thing, or it's like every movie kind of has the same reaction.
Yes, but
internationally in Disneyland Paris, Frozen was a huge one, at least in France. So
I got to say, probably Moana would win out for me. If I had, that's the only movie I could watch. Yeah. It's very, very hard, but I think Moana would probably move it out.
If I picked music-wise, it's definitely Moana. I listen to the music from Moana the most, but if I picked storyline-wise, I think it would still have to be Tangled. I just have always loved Tangled.
Tangled I liked, but not
Tangled
as much
I think was also big for me too, because 2010 is when I started high school, so it's like I really love Tangled as well because I just started high school. It was like it was like in the time of my life, it was just such a big deal to have Tangled. I've always had fairly long hair as well, so I love the idea of like the magical hair. I love the storyline of it as well. I think it's very classic Disney where it's like they always have that romantic storyline going throughout, and I've always loved the little romantic storyline. I love Flynn Rider, obviously, as well. And so, yes, I always love Tangled, but it is hard because I do love Moana so much. Like, this is the one that it's like, it's hard to pick between the two for sure. So, but yeah, but Tangled and Moana are some of my favorites. And not to say
mine
some of
would
the
be
other
Princess
ones.
and the Frog and Moana.
Yeah.
Because I just love Princess and the Frog because of the idea of the whole Southern blues.
Oh, for sure.
Jazz.
That's
that
insane.
kinda.
Like, I did love Big Hero 6 as well. That's a great movie. I feel like that movie
I'm
gets
not
forgotten
so sure.
a lot.
I think I've only seen excerpts from that movie. I don't think I've seen that
Well, we
movie.
would have seen it in theaters together.
We would have
back
seen
in
it, but that was
2014.
once. Yes, back
11 years ago. You saw that in theaters. But yeah, but I did like Big Hero 6 as well when it came out, especially. I thought it was great. So, and I still like Big Hero 6 today. I think it's kind of an underrated movie, but I think it just gets overshadowed by like Frozen, by Tangled, by Moana. Even Zootopia is a great movie as well. So
yes, they're all. I mean,
That's
I'm telling
insane.
you,
Big
some
Hero
of these
6 gets
eras,
buried.
some of these eras, yes, you could sit there and say, how could you even pick one? I mean, because they're just. We saw like at least 3/4 of them that were really great, and then the other ones were good. So, except for the 1 or 2 eras that we went through, that we said, no, I wouldn't have watched anything from there. Disney movies are Disney movies, and I'm one of those people that goes to the movies to be entertained. I want to be entertained. I want to hear good music. I want to see good animation. If I'm watching an animated movie, especially, I want to see good animation. I got to say, I love the live action movies because they're the stories with all the beautiful nuances that of the costumes and everything else that goes with it. So I like to be entertained when I go to the movies. So that's how I'm picking my movies.
No, that's okay. And then if we've picked like the final era that I'm making up, literally, it's just again 2020 to now.
Okay.
So it'd be Onward, Soul, Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca, Encanto, Turning Red, Elemental, Wish, and then we had the 2 Inside Out 2 and Moana 2. And I think this era, to me, like again, me just making up the era, is because I feel like now Disney is focusing on those live action remakes more so over than the original stories, which is, you know, it happens. Like if you look at the movies coming out next year, it's almost all like sequels. You know, there's a lot of sequels coming out. I mean, like we're on Toy Story 5 for goodness sakes. You know, so it's like there's a lot of movies that are coming out and then, you know, even some of these other movies that they made, like Turning Red and like Wish and Elemental, they didn't do that very well. You know, like a lot of people didn't really care for them. They didn't, you know, no one really talked about them, honestly. Even though I think some of those movies were good, again, they just weren't really big hits is the thing.
I think they're banking on the fact that, especially when they do the live action ones, especially, they're banking on the story. They're banking on people knowing that they like the stories of those movies.
Yeah, so at this point, it's almost like making the money more so than trying to.
It's like Broadway. It's like anything
story.
else. They're doing a million revivals because they know that those brought in the people.
Yeah.
And now they're going to do them with a new twist on them, and they're going to bring in the
like
people
a current
again.
cast, or something like that. So out of this era, Soul is my favorite. I love Soul.
That would be mine
Soul
too.
was such a great one with a close tie to Luca. I loved Luca.
Luca was cute.
Luca
yes,
was
it was
so
very
good,
cute.
and I think Luca's very underrated as well.
Yes, it was an underrated movie.
Luca
It was
is
very
such a great
cute.
movie. Yeah, I love Luca.
Yeah,
so.
Luca was a cute movie, but I think Soul would be my pick too.
Yeah,
I
Soul
think
is my
that
pick
was
for
just
sure
great.
for this one. So no, but I love Soul so much. And then I mean, like I loved Wish as well. I don't think the storyline of Wish was that great.
Wish was okay.
Yeah, and I don't think even like the music in Wish was that great either.
Yeah.
But I did really like Wish as well too.
Yeah.
So
I think the animation, that was a different kind of animation that they
it
used.
was a new animation.
It was
that
very
they
good.
Experimented with,
Yes,
I suppose.
it was very
And a
good.
lot
I
of people didn't
remember that
like
they
it.
used that new animation.
Yeah.
It was very good, and it was very the colors, the animation was very interesting, very good. And the story was fine, but not one of. I wouldn't pick it as I have to see it over and over again. Where Soul I would watch again.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, I wonder in like the next 5 to 10 years if people will start to look back and then redo this era basically. Because again, I think it's just too soon for people to start chopping it up, so to speak. So I guess we'll see, but it's very interesting. But yeah, I would love to do more deep dive episodes into each of these eras, starting off with the golden era, just to go through, like what was even going on at the time, like what influences the movies themselves.
That would be good.
Especially some of those early eras where Walt himself was the one that was very heavily involved in the animation itself, especially the golden era. Like that's where Disney started, was in animation. So, that was all it was. It wasn't until, again, 1955 when Disneyland in California opened. So 2 full eras, it is all what Walt Disney himself was leading, which is really interesting. So Savannah's being a little crazy girl over there. Yeah, so yeah, that was the different eras. So yeah, the 8 main eras we have right now of Disney, again, soon to be 9, I'm assuming. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, they may split them up. They may not. They may leave it that way and go on to the next.
We can't
thing.
stay in the revival era forever, so we're going to have to switch eras at some point or another. So, all right, this is normally we go into some Disney news. I didn't really take a lot of notes for Disney news. I feel like the biggest thing right now is the Lunar New Year celebration going on in Disneyland. There's been so much going on for them. Obviously, Mulan has her parade going on. Disneyland Disneyland is also hosting their half marathon and soon as well. So a lot of people are getting geared up for that.
Wow,
So
okay.
that'll be super exciting. Lots of new outfits and things like that for the Lunar New Year. And then of course in Disney World and Epcot, we have the Festival of the Arts still going on. The Festival of the Arts will go on, I think, for a few more weeks, and then they'll start to shut down a little bit. Yeah, and to switching over to Flower and Garden. So right now, the Festival of the Arts is still happening for the time being. There's been some news on the Disney cruises as well recently, just about some of the, because the Disney Treasure is going on their maiden voyage soon. So a lot of the new menus are coming out for the Disney Treasure. A lot of new like sneak peek photos and things like that. So that will be super exciting to see too. And I'm just trying to see if there's any other major things. Again, there's lots of new merchandise that's come out recently, new pins. The big thing was that new cone for Figment for Festival of the Arts with his little like ears or wings on the sides.
Yeah, that looked cute.
It looks pretty good, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Although it's pink, so what flavor is that? I feel like some kind of strawberry flavor.
Cherry or strawberry?
Yeah, I don't really love artificial strawberry or cherry.
I saw a new Aloha Island one that did not look very good. Oh God, I can't remember the flavor they put in it. And I'm saying to myself, I don't think that goes together. But it looked pretty, but it just didn't catch my attention.
Yeah, for the big thing, there's been lots of new merch recently. Oh, the big thing too is the manatees have officially left the seas.
Yes, I saw
so they
that.
have left the seas. They have moved on to their next journey.
I will miss them.
Yeah, so it looks like they've been relocated to the Gulf Area Marine Adventure Park and the Mota Marine Laboratory. This just has to do with like the animals themselves. Like it's good for them to move around. It's good for them for breeding purposes, things like that. So it's like that's kind of why the animals move around, such as like why the lions left Disney's Animal Kingdom and then we got new lions. Again, it has to do with like the animals themselves and like the preservation of their species.
Right.
So that's why the manatees moved, but it's still sad for us to see the manatees go.
I'll miss them.
No, for sure. But again, lots of new merch. Oh, the other thing too is that so we had talked about this in one of our previous for the It's a Small World episode, that Tokyo Disneyland is doing an overlay of Marvel in the It's a Small World.
Oh, are they? I didn't see that.
Some of the new characters have been premiered now. So again, it's only a limited time overlay. And so, but now you can go on It's a Small World in Tokyo Disneyland and you can see a bunch of the Marvel characters. Some of them are actually pretty cute, I will say, because I was curious how they're going to do some of them because like Groot, for instance, isn't like a person. He's like a tree. But his little person is kind of cute. I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
No, I'm a classic It's a Small World person. Don't ever change it. Don't ever do it. That has to stay their icon.
Yeah, so I will say, I feel like when I saw the video, it does look pretty, like they look pretty good. They're pretty cute. I think it's fun, something different. So, but
I'm
again,
also not a Marvel fan, so I really don't care.
Yeah, they did say it is a limited time, so it's not going to be there forever. So if the time is now, if you want to go see it, fly to Tokyo to go see it now. But otherwise, though, there's been a lot of other like merchandise things is like the big thing, the other big news, I feel like. So lots of new merchandise. Like for instance, is this actually in? Oh yeah, no, it's not. Okay, so lots of new stuff, but it's all pretty good. And now this is where we usually do our Disney birthdays. There are no Disney birthdays this week, and also no personal birthdays as well. So this brings us to the final segment of the podcast, our Disney memory. So you have a Disney memory for today's podcast.
My Disney memory is my Winnie the Pooh movies.
Yeah, watching Winnie the Pooh. The mini Winnie the Pooh.
We had all of them. The whole scene, whenever one came out, if you were old enough, we went to the movies. When you were young and they were the older ones, we would just watch them over and over again on the 8-track, the VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. I just love that idea of us watching it. It was so calming. It was just, that's as soon as you say memory, that's what springs into my head.
Yeah, no, I feel like, 'cause that's kind of the same for me as I remember as a kid watching a lot of these movies, over and over again and like watching them on TV. And then we had the DVDs and everything like that. And again, when I was younger, I remember being really obsessed with Hercules for a while there. It's like I really loved Hercules for a very short period of time. And even to this day, I really loved the Greek mythology. Like I was really into Greek mythology when I was a kid. Like I had a short stint on that. And I've read a lot of Greek mythology books now as an adult. And so it's funny because looking at Hercules, it's just the characters are from Greek mythology. The storyline itself has nothing to do with what actually happened.
They weren't out to teach you any history. Yeah, no, you guys watched Peter Pan incessantly and Aristocats incessantly. And then once the live Mary Poppins came out, that was one that we had to watch over and over and over and over again. So those are the three big ones that I remember that we had to watch on a constant basis.
No, for sure. But that's what I remember the most too, is just like watching lots of movies over and over again. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know a lot of parents today say their kids really love Moana or Frozen or something like that. So those are the movies that their kids watch over and over again. But I know some parents say their kids really love the Trolls movie. And I'm like, goodness gracious, I'm not showing my child the Trolls movie. I'm sure the Trolls movie is great. I just just don't like Trolls. So it's like, all right, it's like we got to make sure the kids like some of the good movies that I want to watch too. Because I can't watch the Minions or the Trolls over and over again. I think I would suffer.
Well, see, that's the difference is that I loved watching the Disney movies.
That's what I'm saying.
So when you watch them with your kids and you pop them in and do that, you love watching them yourself. So if you love watching them yourself, it's so much easier that if that movie has to play over and over again, at least it's a movie that you're not saying, oh my God, do I have to watch this again? My child is not going to see a Minion. So it's like nothing, no hate to the Minions, but it's like I just don't love the Minions, and I don't think I could sit and watch the Minions. No, I think they're funny, but the Minion movies really don't catch my attention.
Yeah, the Minions, no. Maybe the Trolls, okay, because I've heard the Troll movies are very good for kids. Like people say the story, it's fun, they're very colorful, everything. But I just don't really love Trolls. It's just a personal preference. But it's like the Minions, though. We're not doing the Minions.
Let's put it
they're
this
not going
way.
to see Despicable Me.
Whatever they start yelling for, you're going to be putting on that TV.
No, they're only going to see what I show them, though. That's what happens when you're a child.
Until they get old enough to go to school.
Yeah, but even still, I'll say it's like, oh, we just don't have that in our house, not in our household. That's like when you tell the kids, like, oh, it's like we have no more batteries.
No more batteries. I can't have any sound.
The sound doesn't work on that. Or it's like, I forget one of the things that someone told me was like, oh yeah, it's like we don't do that on Tuesdays or something. It's just like, oh yeah, that just doesn't happen. That just doesn't exist. So, kids, they're going to be Disney kids for sure. Okay. But this is fun for sure.
Well, good. This way when they come over to Grandma's house, we can watch the Disney movies.
No, but this is really fun. We'll definitely do an episode dedicated to each era as well. Maybe by the time we get to the revival era, they will have split the era into two eras.
Well, I think it's fun to talk about the movies, and it's nice to talk about the movies because there is so much behind them.
There is,
and everybody's so interested in them.
Because there's always politics behind any business.
Yes, there's all the politics, there's all the storylines, there's the message they want to send. It's who they were, employing. I got to tell you, it is a very interesting subject.
No, definitely is. I'm excited to do that. So that will be coming up soon, one day for sure. But until then, thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. Make sure you give us a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I recently started a brand new YouTube channel for this podcast as well. So right now, all of our old episodes of the last 2 years are coming out once a day on that YouTube channel. So definitely subscribe to that YouTube channel. It will catch up eventually to the present day episodes that we're currently doing. But I decided to move them all over to that YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on social media, Almost Amanda X, and we will have a dedicated Instagram post on Almost Amanda X all about this episode. So you can let us know, which era do you think was the best Disney era? I think it was the Renaissance era in the 90s. I think that is where all of the good movies kind of lived.
The Renaissance was the best because you had about 4 or 5 that you just couldn't decide
the Renaissance era I think is definitely the best in my personal opinion, but I would love to know which one is your favorite and which movie from each era is also your favorite as well. But until then,